There's a kind of unease that's hard to name. You're not failing. You're not in crisis. You're still moving forward, but you don't feel grounded. You can support yourself. You have responsibilities. You make adult decisions. And yet, the feeling of stability, the one you assumed would naturally arrive at some age, doesn't quite land. It's like standing on slightly soft ground, not collapsing, but not fully solid either. Millennials grew up with a fairly clear image of adulthood: long term employment, stable housing, gradual upward progress. There was structure, sequence, a sense of locking in. But by the time many stepped into that phase, the context had changed. Recessions hit early careers. Job markets evolved faster than degrees could adapt. Housing prices outpaced savings. Technology reshaped industries constantly. Instead of stepping onto solid ground, you stepped into a moving system. And the brain does not ignore that. Research on chronic uncertainty shows that when long term outcomes feel unstable, the brain increases vigilance. It favors flexibility over fixed commitment. It encourages keeping options open rather than locking into a single path. That doesn't mean a lack of responsibility. It means the nervous system is optimizing for volatility. So you maintain multiple options. You think carefully before long term commitments. You build backup plans. But here's where tension forms. Externally, you adapt to flexibility. Internally, you still carry an older expectation of adulthood: certainty, solidity, arrival. When flexible reality collides with fixed expectation, self doubt quietly grows. You notice it when explaining your non-linear career path, or when looking back and realizing how many times you've pivoted in just a few years. You're functioning well, but you don't feel anchored. And anchored doesn't mean wealthy or impressive. It means identity feels stable. Eric Erikson described adulthood as a stage of identity consolidation through commitment. But consolidation requires relatively stable conditions. When external structures keep shifting, identity doesn't consolidate. It updates. Updating once is manageable. Updating repeatedly for a decade is exhausting. You're not just building a career, you're continuously renegotiating who you are. Then social media amplifies it. According to social comparison theory, humans naturally evaluate themselves by looking at others. That's normal. But when you compare yourself to thousands of curated milestone announcements, your brain only sees signals of completion. It doesn't see trade offs. It doesn't see anxiety. It only sees arrived. And you begin to assume you're late. That feeling isn't weakness. It's a rational psychological response to living in a structurally fluid era while carrying expectations shaped in a more stable one. So if external milestones no longer confirm adulthood, where does adulthood move? When external structures stop guaranteeing stability, adulthood shifts inward. In previous generations, institutions provided validation: long term employment, fixed housing, predictable progression. You didn't question whether you were grown. The structure answered that for you. When institutions become fluid, that validation disappears. And here's what many people miss: the brain equates predictability with safety. When life follows a clear path, cognitive load decreases. You don't constantly reassess your position. In volatile environments, however, you remain in adjustment mode, scanning, recalibrating, preserving optionality. That mode is efficient, but it doesn't feel stable. Flexibility without a core feels like drift. So the issue isn't flexibility, it's the absence of internal anchors. The first anchor is shifting from role based identity to value based identity. If you define yourself by job title, income, or relationship status, your identity depends on external structures. When structures shift, your foundation shakes. But if you define yourself by values, competence, autonomy, integrity, growth, those travel with you regardless of role changes. Roles fluctuate. Values create continuity. The second anchor is adaptive capability. Self-determination theory shows that perceived competence strongly predicts psychological stability. When you trust your ability to learn, pivot, and rebuild, you rely less on one fixed structure for security. The environment may shift. Your capability base remains. That reduces anxiety. The third anchor is redefining progress metrics. If your standard is who reached traditional milestones first, you'll always feel behind in a non-linear era. If your standard becomes, am I clearer, more capable, and more self directed than I was before? Your evaluation aligns with reality. This isn't lowering ambition, it's updating the measuring system. Many millennials aren't afraid of responsibility. They're cautious about committing to structures that may collapse. That isn't immaturity, it's pattern recognition. Modern adulthood may no longer mean permanence. It may mean full engagement while aligned, combined with the capacity to restructure when necessary. Adulthood hasn't disappeared, it has shifted from external stability to internal capacity. If you feel unanchored, ask yourself, are you truly unstable? Or are you living in an era that no longer provides familiar symbols of stability? You may not lack adulthood, you may simply be building it in a new form. And that form requires skill, not perfection. If this perspective resonates with you, you'll probably enjoy the kinds of conversations we have here. This channel isn't just about millennials, it's about how modern environments quietly shape the way we think, work, and define ourselves. If these insights help you understand yourself a little more clearly, consider subscribing so we can keep exploring together.